friend is named Steve. The other friend is named Deb. Steve and Deb are very different. They're not the same type of people. Steve is a successful business person. He works very hard. Maybe you know somebody like that. They're always on the hustle. And Steve gave his life to the hustle. From an early age, he worked harder than everybody. He got good jobs. He got promotions in those jobs, and those promotions got promotions, and he got promoted to the highest level in his particular type of job. He was by all means successful. The dark secret, though, was that he loved work more than most other things. He loved the feeling of being at work, people answering to him. He loved the feeling of being in control. He also loved the paycheck. Because the higher the responsibility, the more the money. And he loved that too. He would tell you that he loved his wife. They'd been married for decades. Except for the fact that he spent more time with his work than he did with his wife. You got to wonder, if you spend more time at your work than with your wife, do you love your work more than your wife? Steve was successful, but he was also a workaholic. Deb was completely different. Deb didn't have a job. She married well, and she was a homemaker. Her work was in the home, which is beautiful and important. And Deb did things that nobody else did. She had time to do things that nobody else had time to do. I remember one time I was sitting outside on a nice day, and I watched Deb walk down the street in the middle of the day. Who has time for that? Who has time to walk down the street in the middle of the day? But Deb does, because Deb didn't have a 9 to 5. But Deb saw some people, some police officers in the middle of an intersection guiding traffic, and it was a hot day. And so Deb thought, maybe I'll do what others don't have time to do. I'll make some cookies, some nice cold water, and I'll serve it to them on a platter. And I watched Deb in the middle of the day, when people typically are at their 9 to 5, walk down the street and serve these police officers water. Beautiful. Beautiful woman, doing great work for God. But see, Deb had a secret too. And that was that from an early age, she began to become dependent on alcohol. She used it to sleep at night, and she used it to wake up in the morning. And most of the time it was okay. Her kids loved her, her husband loved her. But as she got older, like in her 30s, in her 40s, in her 50s, that commitment to alcohol became a dependence to alcohol. She'd wake up in the middle of the night, 1 or 2 in the morning, and she would take a drink, a couple drinks. She'd wake up in the morning, and to get going on her day, she'd take a couple more drinks. And it became that all throughout the day, Deb, this beautiful, amazing woman who had time to serve people in the middle of the day cookies and cold water. Deb got lost in her alcoholism. Her husband saw it, became abusive. Her kids saw it, they become distant. And all of a sudden, Deb loved alcohol more than her family. And she lost everything because of it. She lost everything she cared for another drink. See, Steve was a workaholic. Deb was an alcoholic. But they both found something that was a substitute for God. And because it was a substitute for God, it had the same effect on their lives. It just destroyed what they cared about. Steve loved his wife, but he lost her. Deb loved her family, but she lost them. In verse 2 of our text, in the very first chapter of Ecclesiastes, the writer of this book will tell you his big idea. He'll say in verse 2, meaningless, says the teacher, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. That word meaningless is the Hebrew word havel. Everybody say havel. We're going to hear that word a lot in this book. Havel is a word that literally means vapor. It means mist. Think smoke. Smoke, says the teacher. Everything is smoke, says the teacher. He's going to show us that things in life that think they're secure and predictable are actually temporary. They're like smoke. The things that you hold on to that you think are most important, you will grasp, you'll work for, you'll try to get, and the moment you grab it, like grabbing smoke, it'll evaporate in your hand. Trying to hold on to something like vapor. There for a second. Gone the second later. The teacher is going to go through a bunch of different topics that you and I all deal with, and he's going to conclude, like he says in verse 2, utterly meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Today, he'll talk about money, our pursuit of it. He'll talk about, I'm calling it social media, status. He'll talk about achievement. He'll talk about our pursuit of progress. He'll talk about our pursuit of legacy. And he's going to conclude, after having pursued all those things hard, that it was just mist. It looked like it was something secure. But the minute he went after it hard, he lost it all. Like Deb lost her family. Like Steve lost his wife. The minute he went after it hard, he found that there was nothing there. So we begin. Starting in verse 1, the words of the teacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem. This is wisdom literature. It's a type of genre in the Bible. Like there's narrative, and there's like what's called apocalyptic, and there's history, historical tellings. This is called wisdom literature. Most of the books of the Bible are about God speaking to a group of people, like us, speaking to a group. Wisdom literature is God speaking to the individual. He's speaking to you and to you alone. What you're about to read in this text was designed for you, in your own brain, to consider for your own life. Other translations, the words of the teacher, other translations will say kohelet. Another will say preacher. This translation says teacher. This is somebody, imagine like somebody is gathering a group of students together, like a teacher in a classroom. Now you guys are in the school of Solomon. And Solomon, the teacher, is gathering you to share with you what he's learned about life. That you would consider your own life. That you would consider your own actions. And you might conclude like he did. That the things that you pursued hard, the things that you gave your life for, ended up being like mist. Most scholars think it's probably King Solomon who wrote these words, but it could be someone later, like a teacher or a king later on in history. The teacher Solomon, the author of this book, even though the book is anonymous, the book is about Solomon himself, and he's going to show you the stuff that he learned in his own life. And if he wrote it 900 years later, here we are, 3,000 years later. This is kind of unbelievable that you can read this book today, and it still feels like it could be written yesterday. These words are as current as anything being written in the newspaper today. I think you'll find that amazing. Verse 2, meaningless, says the teacher, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Hell. All the stuff that he's pursued in his life is like a wisp of vapor, a puff of wind, a breath. It's like when you're cold outside and you breathe, and all of a sudden that breath does what? You can see the breath. But in the very next second, it's gone. Until the next breath, and then it's gone. Until the next breath, and then it's gone. He's going to say that the things in life that we feel are important are like that breath. And he's going to go hard after life. He's going to pursue it all. It's like if life were an orange. He has sucked that orange completely dry. And he's looking at that thing called life, and there's nothing left to suck out of it. Meaningless. It's like life is like a cul-de-sac. You always think it's going to be a little bit better, but the problem is you're in this cul-de-sac and the neighbor just keeps looking the same. You ever felt like life is that way? Like, man, I've made some progress. I have better friends. I got better friends. They're all the same as my old friends. The people I know are all the same as the old people I know. Right? Life is like a big old cul-de-sac. Meaningless, Solomon would say. His pursuits. What did he pursue? In this chapter, he'll pursue 5 things. He's going to pursue money. He's going to pursue status. He's going to pursue achievement. He's going to pursue progress. And he's going to pursue legacy. And he's going to find Zephyr, vapor, mist, smoke. Looked like it was something secure. And then the next second, he was gone. If you're taking notes, 5 pursuits that will leave you feeling empty. 5 pursuits that will leave you feeling empty. The first is working for the money. Working for the money, verse 3. What do people gain from all their labors at which they toil under the sun? He's looking at a lifetime of work, trying to get that dollar, trying to stay ahead, struggling for the next paycheck. What do people gain from all that work? So they gained a lot of money. Vapor, he says. Mist. Smoke. Meaningless. I met a lot of people who worked really hard in life. And you know that they're about as happy as the people who don't work for money. Because life is stressful, life is hard, relationships are difficult, bad stuff happens to good people, good things happen to bad people, there's nothing seen just under the sun. And so it doesn't matter how much you work or how little you work, what do you really gain from all that work? Money? Well, great. I've met a lot of people with a lot of money that were unhappy. I've met a lot of people who didn't have a lot of money and they were very happy. You gain from all that work. You see, if you're working for the money, Solomon would say, meaningless, vapor. It'll never be enough. The minute you get minimum wage, what do you want? Above minimum wage. The minute you get above minimum wage, what do you want? Double minimum wage. The minute you get above double minimum wage, what do you want? Salary. The minute you get a salary, what do you want? Overtime. The minute you get above overtime, what do you want? CEO jobs. The minute you get CEO jobs, what do you want? More money. The minute you get more money, what do you want? More money. You see? What do you gain from all that work? What do you really gain? Someone would say, you get nothing. Vapor, mist, smoke. It looks like it'll make you happy, and it doesn't. Because you always want more. I call it the paradox of more. The more you want more, the less you'll have. The more you want more, the less you have. The paradox of more. Solomon would say, if you're working for the money, then it's a pursuit that'll leave you feeling empty. Number 2, I'm going to call it working for the gram. This is the second pursuit that'll leave you feeling empty. He's talking about status, but let's talk about social media. He says in verse 4, generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. Is this not what status is? It's about looking important to the people that came up behind you and important to the people that come after you. It's about how you look to the people around you. Oh, so you're a baby boomer. Great. Who cares? You're a millennial. That's great. Who cares? Oh, you're a Gen X. That's great. Who really cares? Generations come, generations go, but the earth remains forever. The only thing that's secure, the only thing that lasts is nature. Those mountains out there, oh, they've seen thousands, millions, and billions of people before you ever got on the planet. And those mountains out there, they're going to see billions more by the time you're gone. You are temporary. We're missed. Our lives are like a blink, not even a blink, in the scope of human history. They're half a blink. They're minuscule. They're like grains of sand on the vast sea. They're so insignificant and temporary. And so you and I, what we do is we try to make ourselves look good, right? To all those other insignificant people out there. We use our social media to put ourselves out there, to have status among the generations before us and the generation current, and hopefully the generation that Googles us in the future. You ever felt like your social media feed is a little bit like us proving to other people that we're okay, like that we're happy and we're smart, that we made some success in life? You ever do the death scroll where you're just like, oh my gosh, like there's nothing on this thing, but you just keep doing it, right? Just the death scroll. Because what do we all want to do? We want the generations before us, generation in that we're in, and the generation to come to think we're something special. If you're working for the gram, Solomon would say, it's a pursuit that'll leave you feeling empty. He gives 3 examples of why it's empty. Verse 5, numero 5. The sun rises and the sun sets and hurries back to where it rises. Social media is like the sun. It's like you post something, you have status among your generation, and then the next day you post something else, and then the next day you post something else, and then 10 more people post what they think is important, and 100 more people post what they think is more important, and all of a sudden you're just in this cycle of reading other people's posts and posting it on. It's like the sun. It goes up and it goes down, it goes up and it goes down, it goes up and it goes down. It's never satisfied. It just continues to be in this cycle, right, of status. Does that sound like your social media feed? It's like the wind, he says, verse 6. The wind blows to the south and turns to the north. Round and round it goes, ever returning on its course. If you're working for status, it's like chasing wind. The minute you do something that's worth putting online, you get about 10 likes. Some of you get hundreds. That's amazing. Some of you, if you're like me, get 1. And it's like you get a little dopamine hit. Feels kind of nice to be acknowledged. And then the sun sets and the sun comes again, another day. Then the wind changes, another day. And round it goes, round and round, scroll, find yourself just caught in this loop, this never-ending social media status loop. Verse 7, it's like the stream. All streams flow into the sea, yet the sea is never full. To the place the streams come from, there they return again. Social media is a little bit like a stream, literally like a stream of information, isn't it? And so the stream just comes. We take it all in. It's never enough. It comes and it goes. That day, a bunch of the same people are talking about the same thing, sharing their opinions and their pictures. And then the next day, the topics change. Those corporations put something else out that we should be interested or infuriated by. And everyone's sharing again their pictures and their concerns, their hot takes. And the stream comes and then the stream goes. Like nature, it's never enough. Solomon is deconstructing this pursuit that we all have for status. And he's saying, look, generations come and generations go. Not going to be remembered. It's like wind, it's like the sun, it's like streams. There's nothing in it for you, for him. 5 pursuits that'll leave you feeling empty. Number 2, working for the gram, we'll call it. Number 3, working for achievement. Verse 8, numero 8. All things are wearisome. More than one can say. The eye never has enough of seeing, nor the ear its fill of hearing. Working for achievement. Solomon is looking at his life and he's saying, I have worked, and I've seen, and I've heard, and I still haven't seen it all. I still haven't heard it all. I pursued hard, and it still wasn't enough. I resonate with him on this point. I used to live my life that way. What's the next big thing I can do? What's the next thing that I can achieve? Maybe some of you who are achiever types know that about yourself. Always just trying to succeed a little bit more. If you're anything like me, early on in your life, when you were a child, you probably made some good choices. And those good choices led to some success. And you found yourself putting some of your identity in those choices. in that success. Or maybe you grew up in a home that didn't really value achievement. And so when you got achievement, it was a way of saying, I'm not you. I'm not you, Mom. I'm not you, Dad. I'm not you, Grandma. I'm not you, Grandpa. I'm not you, cousin. You and me are different. I'm making some of myself. Solomon made that same choice. Solomon says it's wearisome because the eye is never enough of seeing and the ear never has its fill of hearing. It'll never be enough if you pursue achievement. Because there's always another promotion. There's always another thing to achieve. You'll never be satisfied until you're satisfied by the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. Sometimes we do this with babies. We just think that our babies will be our next achievement. And so if you're like me, you just keep having babies. Like, dang, man. We gotta cut this fountain off. You see, if you're pursuing achievement, Solomon, looking at his life, will find it empty because it'll never be enough. Number 4, working for progress. Verses 9 and 10. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one can say, look, this is something new? It was already here long ago. It was here before our time. You're working for progress. Our culture right now is all about progress. It's all about doing the next thing that's really going to help humanity. The next technology. The next opportunity. The entrepreneurism that's good for our culture because it makes us move forward. Until you realize, as Solomon realizes, that whatever you create, whatever next thing there is just a replica of the thing in the past, done in a new way, with new tech and new people. See, the reality is that progress is just an echo of the past. I mean, the wheel. Can you improve on the wheel? I mean, if you found a way to be a hoverboard, that'd be kind of awesome, new version of the wheel. Except for the fact that the wheel on the hoverboard does the same thing. It moves you that way. See, progress is just an echo of the past. Progress is just this thing with new tech and new people. It's shiny and new. But it's just a way of replicating what's been done. And often what's been done has been done by the same people like us, broken sinners, who find a way to replicate new things in a broken and sinful way. Progress. What's been there will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun. Are you working for progress? Solomon will say, Havel, Havel, done it, been there, done that, found that it was nothing new in fact at all. It's like vapor. It's mist. It looks shiny and new, and the second you grasp it, it's gone. Number 5 pursuits that'll leave you feeling empty. Working for legacy. Verse 11 won't say, no one remembers the former generations, and even those yet to come will not be remembered by those who follow them. You know, it's a very odd thing. I think you especially feel this when you're a parent. Having kids is almost a way that we kind of replicate ourselves in the world. There's probably some biology at work there. But it's a way we kind of implant ourselves into our posterity in the hope that they will carry us on in some meaningful way. You know, our family just did one of those family trees that you can do online. We learned tons of things. We actually were able to trace our family line back to like the 16th something century. It's kind of amazing. Except for the fact that we just know people's names and when they lived. We know nothing about them. And now hundreds of years later, it'd be hard to say that I could draw a line between who they were and who I am. Legacy. Generations come and generations go. No one remembers the former generations. Not even those yet to come will be remembered by those who follow them. Are you working for legacy? Pursuing it? Solomon will conclude, well, vapor, mist. 5 pursuits that will leave you feeling empty. And so the question becomes, what did the teacher learn from those 5 pursuits? What did he conclude after having gone hard in those 5 areas? Verse 12, 13, and 14. I, the teacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem. I applied my mind to study and to explore by wisdom all that is done under the heavens. What a heavy burden God has laid on mankind. I have seen all things that are done under the sun. All of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind. What did he learn? He says, I studied and applied. So he says, I learned and I worked. I learned about money and I worked for it. I learned about status and I worked for it. I learned about achievement and I worked for it. I learned about progress and I worked for it. I learned about legacy and I worked for it. In fact, he says, all things done under the heavens. And you see it in your text. All things done under the sun. I learned about it and I worked for it. What does he learn? Verse 13. It's a heavy burden. It's a heavy burden. Gosh, the more you pursue money, the less you feel like you have with it. Isn't that true? The more you try to grasp an achievement, the less you really have achieved. Because there's always something you haven't achieved. The more you aim at progress, the more you realize it's just a replica of something in the past. And the more you pursue legacy, you realize that even in 100 years, nobody will remember your short life. Hell. Meaningless. Vapor. Mist. Smoke. Those things look so secure, and if you had them, they'd make you happy. And Solomon says, no, it's the opposite. It's a heavy burden. In fact, he says, it's hevel. It's vapor. The question is, why is life like this? Why does it have to be this way? Solomon concludes why life is like this way in verse 15. What is crooked cannot be straightened. What is lacking cannot be counted. This is a statement about your and my own limitations. We are born with limitations. We're like a crooked stick. We're like a curved street. We're not on that straight and narrow all the time, are we? Sometimes we're on that bendy road. Or like Heidi said this evening, that up and down roller coaster. And our lives are a little crooked. Hard to straighten out a crooked person. The TEV translation puts that same verse this way. You can't straighten out what's crooked. You can't count on things that aren't there. It's a statement about your limitations. You and I are limited as human beings by our own sinful nature. And so when we create something new, we've created something new with sin in it. When we've achieved more, we've achieved another thing with sin in it. When we've aimed at progress or established our legacy, we pursued money, we found that we put our little ourselves in it. And the outcome wasn't what we expected. I mean, how do you make progress in a world where you're limited by your own self? How do you make more money in a world where you're limited by your own simple proclivity to either hoard it for yourself and not be generous, or some other sinful thing? You see, what's crooked cannot be straightened. What's lacking cannot be counted. What's crooked is you and I. What's lacking is you and I. So pursuing money and status and achievement and legacy, all of these things leave us feeling empty because they were empty to start. So how do you fix it? Solomon tried. In fact, he'll tell us that he tried to do 3 things to fix that problem. I will fix myself by getting more wisdom, more knowledge, madness and folly. I'm going to experiment, he does. I'm going to experiment. I can fix this feeling of emptiness if I just know more If I just get more, if I just do more, I can fix this feeling of emptiness. And so he says, verse 16 and 17, these three things: wisdom, knowledge, madness, and folly. I said to myself, look, I've increased in wisdom more than anyone who has ruled over Jerusalem before me. I've experienced much wisdom and knowledge. Then I applied myself to understanding of wisdom and also to madness and folly. But I learned that this too is a chasing after the wind. To fix is broken self. How can I feel better about the money that I make, the achievement that I have, the legacy that I think is important to me? How can I fix this? I know. I'll know more and get more. Know more knowledge and wisdom and get more madness and folly. I'll speak about madness and folly in a second. Get more wisdom and knowledge. Surely that will make me happy. I want to read you a Wikipedia paragraph. That's a short paragraph. On the theme of what's called transhumanism. Weird word. There are a lot of isms in this world. There is like capitalism. Capitalism is a way of thinking about economics. Capitalism is the form of economics we currently have here in the West. There are lots of other isms in life. And one of those isms, like capitalism, is a way of thinking about the world and an application of a certain set of ideas on the world. So in capitalism, for instance, the idea is that you are a part of an economy. And you gain from that economy by receiving from that economy money. And you give to that economy by giving to it work. And this reciprocal relationship between giving and taking creates an economy that is the ground floor of what we call capitalism. I want to read you what transhumanism is. See if you can hear in the quote how it seems to apply to our current culture here in the West. Here it is, very short. Transhumanism, this is from Wikipedia, advocates for the enhancement of the human condition by developing and making widely available sophisticated technologies that can greatly enhance human potential. Let me read it again. Transhumanism advocates for the enhancement of the human condition by developing and making widely available sophisticated technologies that can greatly enhance human potential. Transhumanism. The idea is that you are incomplete. As a human, you're not enough. This is the idea of transhumanism. And what you need is sophisticated technologies to become a better type of human. People believe this. Not just some people, many people. In fact, you and I have already taken on a form of transhumanism by staying so widely connected to our phones. I was asking Heidi the other day, hey, what's the number of so-and-so? It's a family member. And she's like, you don't know their number? I said, let me look it up. And I realized that I have a symbiotic relationship with my phone. My phone carries part of my brain. Does anybody in the room have that problem? You literally can't remember things anymore? It's weird, isn't it? Transhumanism. Widely accepted, even in the way we are in this room. Friends, we're just at level 1. It's just level 1. The iPhone's only 8 or 9, 10 years old. This is brand new tech. And we already can't function without it. How many of you, when you lose your phone, go, right? You get a little kind of panic attack, right? It's a really weird feeling. Why? Because you've lost part of your self. Transhumanism. Transhumanism. In fact, there are whole companies working on the premise that we need, as human beings, to fix our crooked selves, sophisticated technologies. You've heard already of Metaverse, for example. Facebook has renamed itself Meta to explain to us where the new type of internet will be, even in the next, our generation. You say, oh, that's far off. That's not far off. The Metaverse is like an embodied internet. Right now, you and I go on the internet by going onto our computer or our phone and doing this. And then up pops a bunch of information we intake. But how much better it would be if you could somehow be so integrated with technology that you are now not reading the internet, you are in the internet. In a virtual way. What already happens in gaming, you all look surprised. None of you are gamers? You ever seen a gamer who's really passionate about gaming? They either have a widely 180-degree view of the world that they're in, and they are in the game, or they literally put on a VR headset. Which, by the way, if you've never had the opportunity to put on a VR headset, it's amazing and scary. Metaverse is the idea, based on the idea, that we are better when integrated technologically. We are better relationally. We are more connected to one another. We are a better form of what it means to be human when we are widely connected through sophisticated technology. In fact, Mark Zuckerberg said these words, "Today, I think we look at the internet, but in the future, you're going to be in the experience." A multi-billion-dollar corporation is saying the goal is transhumanism. You will be better because you will be in the experience. And so there are all sorts of companies working on this project, augmented reality tools. You already see them in the VR headsets. Full haptic suits for immersive experiences. It's one thing to play a game like World of Warcraft and you're shooting people. It's another thing to get shot and feel it. Kind of nice if you're into gaming. Or like a company named Neuralink, neural implants. Neuralink is already on its way. Embedded technology in animals that can control animals turning left and turning right. This isn't for tomorrow. This has already happened even a year ago. Well documented. You can go listen to the CEO and watch their results. Right? Well, but this is far off into the future. This will never happen in our lifetime, except for the fact that the U.S. Department of Defense and the U.S. National Institute of Health have already devoted hundreds of millions of dollars in funding this work. This isn't sometime in the future, friends. This is now. You're in it. Solomon experienced the same thing. Not the neural links, or the haptic suits, or the augmented reality. But the pursuit of knowledge, the pursuit of information in the hope that it'll make your life better. And we're doing the same in our culture. And he will conclude that it's hell. It's smoke. It won't fix your problems. Artificial intelligence is part of this reality. AI. Ray Kurzweil is somebody who's been made famous because he's the person that invented the technology to help you speak into your phone and do dictation. And he's widely known as somebody who not only speaks to the current reality of tech, but also to the future realities of tech integrated into our lives. He was speaking about artificial intelligence recently, and this is what he said. Artificial intelligence will reach, so artificial intelligence is, we have these little brains, right? But we're only using about 3% of them. There's a lot of our brain that people are still trying to figure out how it works. Okay? The brain is a big mystery in science. It's like space. We only can really examine our Milky Way, but there are like hundreds of billions of galaxies. Right? A little bit like the brain. And artificial intelligence is a really, really fancy computer. Imagine if a fancy computer could do everything that your brain does, but better. Faster thinking, more knowledge, has all of the internet, all of knowledge as we know it, packed into this accessible thing called the internet, this intelligence, artificial, because human beings created it to learn. Right now, a few people each year get a Nobel Prize, right? Because of amazing research. Imagine a computer that's making Nobel Prize level research, but it's learning stuff by the hour. New things that humans have never discovered because it itself is learning, taking all of the breadth of knowledge and applying it to a moment or a problem. Artificial intelligence. Ray Kurzweil said this: artificial intelligence will reach human levels by around 2029. Follow that out further to say, by 2045, we will have multiplied the intelligence, that is, the human biological machine intelligence of our civilization, to a billionfold. So by 2045, he says that computers will be about 1 billion times smarter than you and I. Amazing. This isn't for the future. This is for now. This is today. And the goal is what? The goal is smarter than human intelligence. The goal is brain-computer interfaces. The goal is neuroscience-based human intelligence and enhancement. Do you see that this is the same project that Solomon attempted? Get more knowledge, get more wisdom. Then I'll get a handle on things. And do you see that he calls it vapor, mist, smoke? It looks so secure. It looks so promising. But when you grasp it like smoke, you realize you've held on to nothing. So he says in verse 17, he applies himself to understanding wisdom, but also to madness and folly. And he learned that this too is a chasing after the wind. So he says, I'm going to try to go get madness and folly. Now what's that? That's not terminology that you and I use. But when the Bible uses the phrase madness and folly, it's talking about human beings who say, look, I've had enough of rationalism. I've had enough of trying to figure this all out using my little tiny brain. What I really need to figure this all out is experimenting with the profane. That's what I really need. So, like for example, partying. Partying might be the dumbest idea on the planet. You guys don't agree with me? Let's be party animals. That's amazing. That's all right. All are welcome. Think about partying. You're with a bunch of people that you don't really like for an amount of time that you could be doing useful things. Typically, you're drinking pretty hard or doing drugs. And then you wake up in the morning feeling like what? Regret, and you feel sick. Does that sound about right? Partying hard feels so good when you're in it, and you always regret it. You probably did some things that you wish you would have done, said some things you wish you wouldn't have said, and you probably threw up in a toilet somewhere. You see, if you made it to the toilet, thank you. Do you see how it's anti-rationalism? It's not rational. Partying is the most irrational thing that you could do. It really doesn't make sense. It's not productive. You're not with people you really enjoy. And if you say you enjoy them, you kind of only a little bit enjoy them. And then afterwards, you feel like junk. It's irrational. Solomon says, I went after that stuff too. Madness and folly. And in our culture, sexual liberty would be another. Oh, I'll just sleep with as many people as possible. Right? I mean, this is normal. Like most of our friends, most of the people that we know. Pizza, somebody grab it. You're good. Most of the people that we know are sleeping with multiple partners by the time they ever find their partner that they want to stay with. And even then, when they find their partner that they want to stay with, even then, we're getting to polyamorous relationships. And it's getting crazy. Would you agree? I mean, when Will Smith's daughter is sleeping with many people at the same time, calling it a relationship, we're in a tough place. Right? So, will sexual liberty do it for us? Solomon says, madness and folly, try that. DMT trips. Joe Rogan, is the biggest podcast in the world, right? No other podcast in the world is more listened to and appreciated than the Joe Rogan podcast. Most of us in this room, I guess 90%, have had a chance to listen to the Joe Rogan podcast. Not knocking it. I was just saying that Joe Rogan has been quoted to say that he thinks most people need to have a DMT trip in their lifetime. They need to have this extraterrestrial experience, this out-of-body experience. He'll say that it's safe, and when doctors prescribe, it can be very useful to humbling you and helping you to get rid of your own ego. Everybody, he says, should go under DMT. Have you heard him say this?
What's DMT?
DMT is a hallucinogenic drug. It'll last for a very short period of time, and when prescribed by a doctor, could lead you potentially to an extra out-of-body experience that might fundamentally change your behavior and the way you look at the world. This is the promise, of course. And so more and more, we're seeing like these drug-induced spiritualities, these attempts of madness and folly to solve us. Solomon tried that. He tried it all. And he found that it was vapor. He thought there would be something there for him. And what he found was like mist. Like a dust storm. Wow, that tornado looks really great outside. Let's go play in the tornado. And by the time you get to the dust storm, it's gone. There was nothing there for you at all. In fact, he'll conclude by verse 18, for with much wisdom comes much sorrow, the more knowledge, the more grief. What's the lesson? He concludes, after having sought it all, pursued money and status and significance, and he pursued madness and folly and more knowledge to fix his crooked self. He tried it all, and he was just left with sorrow and grief. Why is that? The Bible actually doesn't leave us hanging on why that is. Why is it that when you try to solve yourself by getting more education, getting more input, getting more, being more, it just leaves you feeling like a heavy burden? Romans 8:5-6 says this: those who live according to the flesh have their minds set on what the flesh desires. But those who live in accordance with the Spirit have their minds set on what the Spirit desires. The mind is governed by the flesh, and that is death. But the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. It's the Bible's way of saying what you pay attention to, you become. It's the Bible's way of saying what you pay attention to, you become. Or maybe even more profoundly, if I had to rephrase it, it would be this: what you pay attention to governs you. What you pay attention to governs you. If you pay attention to getting more money, you will be governed by what? Getting more money. You see, the pursuit leaves you feeling empty because it's never enough. No more knowledge, no more information, no more leaning into experimental madness and folly. None of it will be enough. It's like vapor. It's meaningless, Solomon says. And so I'm so glad the Bible teaches us in Philippians 4:8-9. He'll say, summing it all up, friends, I'd say to you this: do your best by filling your minds and meditating on things true, noble, reputable, authentic, compelling, gracious, the best, not the worst, the beautiful, not the ugly, things to praise and not things to curse. The Bible says that you do your best in life when you focus on the good stuff, not this craziness, these pursuits that will leave you feeling empty. 5 pursuits that leave you feeling empty: pursuing money, pursuing status, pursuing achievement, pursuing progress, and pursuing legacy. It's very important to listen to Solomon on this. Solomon, historically speaking, was brilliant. He wrote 3 books of the Bible. He wrote Proverbs, Song of Solomon, and Ecclesiastes. Historically, he's considered to be one of the wiser people that have ever lived. He might have been the richest. He had ships of gold delivered to him every day of his life. He had thousands of servants. He had tons of land. He had it all. On top of that, he was a genius. Think about Elon Musk, super smart guy. Right? And then he had 700 wives, 300 concubines. Not sure how a genius comes to that conclusion, but that would be a good idea, but he did. He thought it'd make him happy. He thought it'd make him successful. On many occasions, he took on wives of other nations because it was a business deal with those other nations. I get your gold, I take your wife kind of thing. You know, you take my land, I take some of your wives and your gold. And so he ended up with this amazing 1,000-person marriage, and learned a lot, I'm sure. Scripture teaches that when he did that, he started focusing on his wives and took his attention off God. And that ruined him. That literally ruined his life. He pursued hard money and status and achievement and progress and legacy. He had it all, and he did it all, so to speak, and ruined his life. It would be well worth it to listen to him 3,000 years later, after this book was written. It'd be well worth it. It'd be wise to listen to him now. He's telling you the future. You pursue money, it's hell. You pursue status, that Instagram, it's hell. You pursue achievement, it's smoke. You pursue progress, it's vapor. You pursue legacy, it's wind, and it'll never be enough. And Jesus would agree. Jesus said these words, "For what does it profit a person? To gain the whole world, and to what? Forfeit your soul." Jesus would agree. So what's the one pursuit that'll leave you feeling full? Jesus says this, "Whoever loses his life for my sake and for the gospel will save it." Everybody say, lose your life. Lose your life. I translate it to say, let go. Let go of pursuing hevel, of pursuing money. Let go of pursuing status. Let go of pursuing achievement. Let it go, progress. Let it go. Let it go, pursuing legacy. Let it go. The one pursuit that will leave you feeling full, amidst all the pursuits that will leave you feeling empty, is simply this: let go. Let go. Loosen your grasp. Trying to get more cash. Trying to get more achievement. Let it go. 1 John 2, 15 through 17 in the Message says this. John is affirming this idea. Don't love the world's ways. You can almost hear him say, let go of the world's ways. Don't love the world's goods. You can almost hear him say, let go of the world's goods. Love of the world squeezes out the love of the Father. Practically everything that goes on in the world, wanting your own way, wanting everything for yourself, wanting to appear important, has nothing to do with the Father. It just isolates you from Him. The world and all of its wanting and wanting and wanting is on the way out, but whoever does the will of God sets for eternity. Let it go. In chapter 12 of Ecclesiastes, Solomon will conclude, to let it go would be to fear God, just keep His commands. Let go of all your stuff. Fear God, do what He says. That's what John is saying in this text. Steve and Deb are very different people. Steve is a workaholic, Deb is an alcoholic. But they both found a substitute for God, and it ruined their lives. We find substitutes also. The substitute of pursuing money, the substitute of pursuing status on our social media, the substitute of pursuing achievement, the substitute of pursuing progress, the substitute of pursuing legacy. You and I aren't too far off of Deb and Steve. The good news, though, is this. Steve, after having lost his marriage, found it again. He didn't know that his wife was praying for him in the time that he was gone. Oh, he had left her. He had left her to work harder and achieve more. But she prayed. even wrote a blog about her experience that she never shared with anybody. Heidi and I were maybe the only people that ever saw her, what she wrote. She prayed desperately that God would bring her husband back, and in time, God did. Steve came to visit recently, sitting in our living room, and he would tell you that he pursued hard the things of this world, and he lost it all. But God loved him so much, he did everything he could to bring him back. Today, Steve is happily married to the wife he once left. God makes all things new. Oh, Deb, she continued to drink, and she lost it all. Distanced herself from her husband, separated, divorced. Distanced herself from her children, isolated and alone. Deb, on the other hand, is still distanced. They both found substitutes for God, but one found God again. Which one will you and I be? Deb or Steve? Because in this room today, many of us are still pursuing money and status and achievement and legacy and progress. And what we will find, like Solomon, is that they are temporary and fleeting. They promise and underdeliver. They don't produce what you think they should. They're meaningless, utterly meaningless. Everything under the sun is vapor, Solomon says. And the good news is God knows that. He knows our proclivity to chase everything but him, to substitute things for him. And I believe God is praying for you. John 17 tells us that Jesus prays for us. And every day in heaven, there's this picture in the book of Revelation where it's symbolic, but the idea is that the prayers are collected in a bowl. And the chorus of heaven, which is singing, thousands of angels, which are singing constantly around the throne of Jesus, all of a sudden are silenced. And this bowl of prayer is brought to the Father. And the Father takes concern to read each one. I think that God wants you back. And I not just think that God wants you back, I know he wants you back, and I don't just think he knows he wants you back, I think he will win you back, and he will go at great lengths to save you from yourself, if you're willing. So let go. Let go of your clutch on working for the money. Let go of your clutch on working for the gram. Let go of your clutch on working for achievement. Let go of your clutch on working for legacy. Let it go. It's vapor. It's mist. It's not real. The only thing that real is this. The only thing that will leave you feeling full is this. Let go. Hold on to God. No substitutes for him. Let's pray. Lord Jesus,